referring to the EARTHSCAPES 1.0 application, as well as Corel Designer X4. And this is our most recent release of the EARTHSCAPES program. When working with the EARTHSCAPES software, to first get started, you will need to open up the EARTHSCAPES application. So I'm just going to close out of everything so we will all get on the same page here. So locate the EARTHSCAPES program from your desktop. We'll be looking for the EARTHSCAPES icon. We'll double-click to launch EARTHSCAPES 1.0. You can also gain access to the EARTHSCAPES program from your Start button. So if we go to the Start button, it may be listed in your recently used applications or files, or you could simply go to All Programs, and we can look for our EARTHSCAPES software. And you can launch the EARTHSCAPES program from this particular window, which I just found it. Here we go, EARTHSCAPES 1.0. So that's an application that you can launch from your Start button, or you can launch it directly from your desktop. Once the EARTHSCAPES 1.0 application is open on your computer, we'll just take a quick look across the top toolbar area. We have our File menu, our Tools, and Corel. Today's training webinar is working with plant symbols, and plant symbols are used when you create your overhead to scale drawing. When creating the scale drawings, we will be using Corel Designer. To launch the Designer application, you'll go to the Corel button on the top horizontal menu bar, and we simply left-click on Designer. When you click on Designer, you'll see that my cursor is scrolling. It's opening up Designer, it's launching the Designer application. If Designer does not open immediately up on your screen, take a look in your status bar area. And you'll see the Designer icon is in the status bar. Just left-click on that icon, and that's going to pull up the Designer application for you. You can expand the Designer window by going to the upper right-hand corner. We have a Minimize button. We have a Maximize button. And we also have a Close. Click on the Maximize button. This will take the Corel Designer application to a full screen. To begin an overhead site plan drawing, let's go to File, New from Template. New from Template allows for you to choose either architectural or engineering scale. My Designer X4 users, if you click on the Browse button, you'll see that we do have architectural scale listed. If we'd rather choose engineering, we can just simply click on Templates, and we have both architectural or engineering available. I can double click on engineering and select my 1 to 10, my 1 to 20, so on, scale listed here within our engineering scales that are available. Or if I'd rather go back to the architectural scale, we can go back to the directory. So let's just use our file directory. We'll click back on Templates, double click on Architectural, and let's use 1/16 scale. And we'll click on Open. This will open up a blank screen for us, and at this point you can begin drawing in your foundation lines, drawing in your property lines, or importing an existing base plan or survey map, Google Map image, or even AutoCAD file. But we are focusing today on the plant symbols. So let's get down to the basics first. Plant symbols can be illustrated as standard circles, standard geometric shapes such as basic circles, or we can utilize the preloaded symbols from the EARTHSCAPES application. We'll first walk through the steps of how to use just the basic geometric shape of a circle. Some designers prefer using a standard circle and coding out that circle on their page to identify the particular plant. This works out well if you as a designer or a designer on your team truly likes to add in some hand-rendered lines. By creating a design that is only basic circles with a coded system identifying those objects. Once that design is printed, we could go back in and hand draw some lines as needed. So let's just take a look at the circles. From the Corel Designer platform, we do have our standard toolbar, which has our object pick tool. It has our line tools as well as some geometric shapes. Your toolbar may appear on the left vertical side of your page. However, mine's on the top. Either way, you have access to the same tools. I'm just going to go back to a full screen here. So to select the circles, we have circle tools, and we also have ellipse tools. So let's just click on the circle tools because we want perfect circles. You'll notice that my cursor does change. We have a circle icon that appears as well as a crosshatch. To draw a circle, I'm going to draw a circle and I'm going to show you what's going to happen. If I draw a circle, you'll notice that the dimensions are given to me at the bottom of the screen, but the readout is in inches, so we do need to change our units to feet. So let's just go ahead and make a circle, and I'll release my left mouse button. Click on the Object Pick tool and click on the outside of our page. We need to make sure that there are no active objects. So I click on the Object Pick tool to cancel out of my circle function. Click on the outside of the border for your page so there are no selected objects on my screen. And you'll notice that units are listed and in view within our horizontal toolbar area. I'll click on the drop-down arrow and we'll select feet. Now let's try this once again. If I click on my circle tool, left-click and drag, you'll see that my circle width and the height is given to me at the bottom of the screen. So as I increase the size of the circle or decrease the size of the circle, the diameter of the circle is given to me at the bottom of the screen. So if I release the circle, again, we have a confirmation that this particular circle is 78 feet in diameter. To manually adjust your circle dimensions, and this is going to be true with standard circles, standard geometric shapes, as well as when we get into the plant symbols, the custom plant symbols that are loaded in your software, you can manually change the diameter of your circle. To do so, we'll go over to the right-hand side of our screen, and we're looking for the Property Manager Docker. So the Docker windows sit on the right-hand side of your screen. You may have Object Manager listed, and you may also have the Property Manager listed. If this is not in view, I'm just going to close out to show you. If we don't have Property Manager listed on the right-hand side of our screen, you'll go to Window, and you'll see that we have Property Manager listed as the first item. If you left-click on Property Manager, it's going to pull that Property Manager up for you. Again, Object Manager should be listed here as well as Property Manager. If either one is missing, you can easily gain access to them by going to Window on the top menu bar and making sure that they do have a check mark, indicating that both are active and displayed windows. With the Property Manager up and available on your screen, you'll see that there are different functions that you can perform to this particular object. So we have a circle selected on our screen, and the very first function is a fill bucket. We then have an outline tool, and if we continue down the tabs of our Property Manager, the very last tab is an ellipse tool, but this ellipse tool allows for you to resize. Manually type in the dimensions, the diameter for your particular circle or your plant symbol that's selected on your page. Right now, our symbol is at 78 feet. If I left-click and place my cursor into this field, we'll highlight the field and simply just click on backspace or delete. And then I'll manually enter in 50. So that's for my width. We also have the height. Again, I just backspace within this field, type in 50, press enter, and you'll see that both the height diameter as well as the width diameter has been adjusted to my manually typed in 50-foot increment. Additional options that are available within the Property Manager, we did look at our fill selection. So with the Fill tab, it does appear as a bucket, and you'll see at this time no fill is selected. I can click on that drop-down arrow and I can choose a uniform fill. When you select a uniform fill, you have a color palette that is visible for you, and you can select on any colors just with a left click to change the color of your object, in this case the circle. If I left click and hold on any of these items, you'll see that the color palette expands for you to even farther color choices and selections. So again, a left click and a hold is going to expand that color palette for you for an unlimited amount of colors and choices. Another quick tip that I'd like to really share with you about filling your shapes, and this could be the circles that we're working with today, it could also be any custom shape, any beds, any geometric shape as your rectangles or squares. But to fill your shapes, your closed shapes, very quickly, of course you can use the Property Manager, which doesn't take much time at all, just with a left click, and we can change our colors as needed. But you can also use the color palette toolbar that's available on the far right-hand side of your screen. And of course you can scroll down, scroll up using the arrows on this toolbar. But again, you can left click on any of these color palette choices, and a left click will change the fill color. If I left click and hold on the color palette square or the swatch, left click and hold, it does expand, just as we found to be true inside our Property Manager. It expands that color palette to a wide array of different color options for you. The other quick tip that I'd like to share with you is you can change the outline color of your shapes. And this is where you can really work with the EARTHSCAPES program to develop your own artistic expression. Using the preloaded symbols, using some of the basic geometric shapes such as the circles and the squares, you really can have them be rendered and drawn, displayed, illustrated exactly how you want them to look. So for example, if we have our circle that's in view right now, it's filled with green, and if I wanted to change the outline color, I can go over to either the color palette toolbar, and I can right click. With a right click, it changes the line color. A left click is fill, a right click is line color. We could then go into our outline, and if we wanted to change this to a thicker line, we might have to go a little bit larger since we're using pretty significant scale. But you'll see that it does change your outline color. So keep this in mind when we begin working with the custom plant symbols that are available for you. You can change the fill color as well as change the line color for these objects. Let's go back to our fill. And I'm going to increase the size of this circle just so we can see for illustration purposes a little bit better. So with our solid circle filled with green, that's a uniform fill color, we can also click on the drop-down arrow and we can select a fountain fill. I'd say the two most popular fill styles for your plant symbols or the circles, if you are using them to represent your plant symbols, would be the uniform fill or the fountain fill. The fountain fill gives more of a stylized look. It does allow for you to fade from one color to another. With the fountain fill, we can choose different fountain fill patterns. So we have a linear, we have a radial. If I click on the radial, you'll see that it's centering in the yellow and fading into the green, or vice versa. The green's on our outside and it fades into the yellow. We can make changes if I wanted the yellow fading to a green. Again, you can get some different rendered looks. This is our conical fountain fill as well as a square fountain fill. And I'm just going to change our outline color. Okay, you can always go into the advanced step within the fountain fill. If I click on advanced within this property manager Docker, we're working with the fountain fill right now. If you wanted to change the midpoint, if we wanted to make this midpoint smaller, or if we wanted to make it a little bit bigger, you'll see that it is being reflected in the upper right-hand corner of our fountain fill screen. So we can make changes to how that fountain fill is displayed and illustrated on your design. I'll click on OK, and you'll see that it has been altered on my page. So have some fun playing around with the different uniform fills as well as the fountain fills. And this can be done for, again, your geometric circles when you represent your symbols, or for the custom symbols that are loaded in the EARTHSCAPES program. The other feature that I'd like to share with you prior to moving into those custom symbols is the ability to duplicate your objects. This is going to carry over to any object that you have selected on your page, not just the circles to represent your symbols, but if you did have, say, irrigation heads or any sort of lines that you'd like to duplicate with that object selected on your page. So right now we have our selector boxes that appear around our object. To duplicate this item, I press Control on the keyboard with the letter D as in dog. So we do Control D as in dog, and you'll see a duplicate is produced for us immediately. One of the smart features within the EARTHSCAPES program is if I take this duplicate, and if I position the duplicate, let's just position it so it's a tangent, so they're just touching edge to edge. If I press duplicate again, so we do another Control, D as in dog to duplicate, you'll see that my plant symbols or my circles are being spaced out according to that initial distance I set. So let's do one more. If I do a Control D, again, it's being spaced out appropriately. Let's just delete, and we'll select our object, press delete on our keyboard to remove the item, select the object, press delete. If there is a known duplicate distance for a particular object, so if we have this object and I want to duplicate this object at maybe 100 feet. Right now, this particular object is listed at 115 feet, so it's pretty sizable. We have an object, we want a duplicate distance of 100 feet. We want a little bit of overlap here. Make sure you don't have any objects selected on your screen. Doing so, you'll have your object pick tool selected, and you'll click outside of your page border. So we just click outside of the page border. No objects are selected. Nothing is active. When no objects are selected, you'll notice in your horizontal toolbar area, we have a duplicate distance. This will not be displayed if you have a plant symbol that's selected. Where did it go? It's not available. So let's click on the outside of the page border, and you'll see that the duplicate distance is available. We have both the X as well as the Y. If I want my 100-foot duplicate distance, I'm going to cancel out of the Y coordinate, which would be your horizontal, your up-down value, and I will type in 100 for our X coordinate, our X value, left and right, our horizontal value. Press Enter to set our duplicate distance, and with our object selected, I press Control D as in dog, and you'll see that that duplicate is produced for us, and it's produced at our set 100 feet for the duplicate distance. So let's begin working with the custom plant symbols that are loaded within the EARTHSCAPES program. And if anyone does have questions as we go, certainly enter them into the GoToWebinar panel that appears on your screen. We will also have this video recorded for you to play back at a later date. So with our designer page open, again, we'd like to produce an overhead site plan. We go into the EARTHSCAPES program, we launch Designer, We choose our page size, we choose our template, and we have a page that appears on our screen. So let me just delete some of these symbols. So this is what you're going to be starting with. You're starting with a clean page within the Corel Designer application. To gain access to your plant symbols, let's toggle back to the EARTHSCAPES program. So we're going to go back down to the status bar area, and we'll locate our EARTHSCAPES icon, our EARTHSCAPES application. So we click on EARTHSCAPES. You'll next click on Database. Database is where all of the plant symbols, as well as if you do assign property to your symbols, this is the area to do so. With Database selected, on the far right-hand side of the screen, you'll see that we do have our architectural symbols, our plant elevation symbols, and our plant symbols. This is your plant symbol library. To pop this library out of place, you'll click on this window icon. It's going to turn it into its own independent window, its own independent library. So with this independent library that's floating, I'm going to bring back up Corel Designer, and you'll see we have our independent plant symbol or our symbol library on top of Corel Designer. So let's go ahead and click on the drop-down arrow, and we'll select Plant Symbols. From the Plant Symbols library, you have many to choose from. Use that sliding bar to scroll down, scroll through all the areas, all the symbols for you to choose from. And let's go ahead and drag and drop. So left click, drag and drop the symbol onto the screen. Right now the symbol is displayed at a width of 23 feet. So of course we can increase it just by grabbing a hold of the corner node and increasing as needed, or you can manually type in the diameter for this particular object. To type in the diameter for the object, we're going to go back over to the Property Manager, the very last tab. This will contain the horizontal as well as the vertical. So we can type in 50 for the horizontal diameter, 50 for the vertical diameter, and manually type in the dimensions or the size that we need for this particular plant symbol. If we'd like to duplicate the symbol, we press Control-D to duplicate. Our duplicate distance is set at the 100 feet, so it's remembering that 100-foot duplicate distance. If you'd like to change the color of this plant symbol, use the Property Manager, and we'll select the fill bucket, and we can choose uniform fill, and we can select any color that we'd like to use. We can also choose the fountain fill. Again, changing out the colors as needed, really representing your items. And if you want to change the line color, keep in mind you can always change that line color, again, to make custom symbols to represent maybe a flowering shrub versus just an evergreen or a boxwood. With our plant symbol selected, if you'd like to add transparency to a symbol, so let's have some fun here. Let's go ahead and duplicate our green shrubs, and we'll cluster them together. So let's go ahead and make a grouping, and we'll have a canopy tree. And let's say we'd like to see through this particular object. So with our item selected, we can use the transparency function, and the shortcut for the transparency is the Shift key and the letter I. You can also gain access to the transparency from your toolbar area, and it's all part of the interactive tools. And you should notice that we do have the interactive tools. It almost looks like a wine glass. But when we have our object selected, we click on the interactive tools, the transparency. Right now the transparency is listed as none. We can use a uniform transparency, and then you can adjust the amount of transparency or the amount of opaque value for this particular fill. And you can really make this design, make the symbol look and be illustrated the way that you would choose to do so. Again, we have our our shade tree with our shrubs as the understory, you can apply that transparency and be able to see through different layers. Let's just use the undo button. Of course, I've moved this several times. Let's use the undo button and see if we can get back to a solid plant symbol. Almost there. Okay. So again, with our plant symbol selected, we're going to use the interactive tools, the transparency. Click on that transparency tool. We can select no transparency, or we can do a uniform transparency. And then within the horizontal toolbar, you can use the sliding scale to adjust the transparent value, either more opaque or less opaque, more transparent. And then to cancel out the transparency, we would click on the Object Pick tool. I'm going to take a look to see if we have any questions about the use of plant symbols, changing the color, really creating custom looks with plant symbols. Any exchange of information between Estimator and photo paint programs. And this question came in from a user. I will get back in touch with you regarding your question. With the photo paint program and information to the estimator, no. The photo paint is not producing designs to scale. There's no measurement, so there's no information that's sent over to the estimator application. However, when you do produce your overhead site plans, if you do assign properties to your plant symbols, that information is sent back over to the estimate and produces an estimate for you at real time. Can you use names to the plant symbols on the designer? Yes, you can. You can use a call-out tool if you would like to assign the name of the plant using the call-out function. With our item selected, we'll return to our standard toolbar. Again, this may appear on the left-hand side of your screen. So we click on the call-out function, left-click and drag in whatever direction you want. If we wanted to have our call-outs displayed on the left-hand side, or if I wanted to have it displayed on the right-hand side, I left-click and I drag, and then I can type in, let's just type in a name of our dogwood. Again, we're at a very large scale, so it would be recommended that you zoom in and you can enter in the text as needed. But you'll see that the call-out is available. And we'll just get everything in view so we can see it. There we go. So our call-out is available for our plant, labeling our plant with the call-out tool. And if you do wish to learn more information about the call-outs, I would suggest going to our forum, the EARTHSCAPES forum page, and pulling up some of the tips that really walk through the steps and the functions of the call-out. With the call-out tool, you can have your call-outs displayed in a variety of different ways and different styles, so keep that in mind. Also, to assign properties to your plant symbols, if you go back into the EARTHSCAPES application, we talked a little bit about the way to gain access to your plant symbol library. And right now you'll see that the plant symbol library is still as its independent window. To pop it back into place, you'll just click on that same window icon. It's going to situate that plant symbol library or the symbol library back into this database window. With the database window, this is the area that you can assign names to your plants. So if we have our symbol displayed and we assign a name to our plant, we can also assign a price to this particular item. When it's saved to a favorites folder or a search catalog and that item is used on the design, that's the information that's being sent over to our estimator application. And I would suggest if anyone is interested in learning that step in that process, to go to the EARTHSCAPES forum page, and we'll just click on, we're in the forum page itself. If you wanted to do a search for plant symbols, so we just type in plant symbols, which within the forum site, click on search. It does have a list of tips: importing plant symbols into the site plan, how to add plant symbols, customizing the symbols. So here's a variety of tips for you to print, for you to review, to evaluate, to really build up additional skills when using the EARTHSCAPES program and using the site plan designer and creating your site plans. Let's go ahead and see if we have additional questions that came in. Thank you everyone for attending today's webinar on plant symbols and creating custom designs with the EARTHSCAPES program using the Corel Designer X4 platform. Our next training webinar does take place on Wednesday. That's November the 30th, and it's photo editing basic skills. So really learning some of the root values, the root functions to that Corel Photo Paint application to enhance your photo designs, your visual designs. So again, thanks for everyone for attending. If you have questions, you can give our office a call. The telephone number is 330-259-7661. Have a great day and look forward to working with you next week, as well as everyone have a great holiday, great Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.